give a response. But at this particular moment, I'd like us to take a look. Maybe we can get some insights in regards to this issue of where we are and how competitive the industry is, and some of the solutions that we'll discuss here on how we can make the sector more competitive on all tiers, the micro, small, medium-sized, manufacturers across. And right now, I'd like to go back to my colleague, Jimmy Mbogo, with the latest on matters competitiveness. Over to you, Jimmy.
All right, thank you very much, Noah, and your panel. Of course, this is a conversation that is coming at a time when global competition, and we're pretty much living in a world that has become one big global village. And we just want to have a conversation around global competitiveness with that is the board chair of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Mr. Rajansha. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us and to be part of this conversation. So I just want to get from your assessment, when you look at the manufacturing sector in the country, how would you assess our competitiveness?
Thanks, Jimmy, and thank you for having me here. Of course, global competitiveness plays a very significant role in any industrialization journey for any country. And we have actually, as Kenya Association of Manufacturers, put it at the center, at the heart of our conversations on how we, as our industries, can become globally competitive. So what does global competitiveness mean? First of all, I think it's better to unpack that. It is when we are able to produce goods at a quality and at a price which we can say we can be able to sell globally anywhere where we have market access. Now, to enable that to happen, there are just different components that we need to address in terms of global competitiveness. Some are outward-looking policies, and some are also inward-looking in terms of how, as industries, we need to kind of go about to make our goods. So let me address first of all the outward looking, the ease of doing business. That in any part of the world is the most important criteria to become globally competitive. What does ease of business mean? It means a tax environment, a regulatory environment, the kind of cost that a business incurs. Are they globally competitive? Are they at par with any other country in the world who are able to globally compete and are able to produce those goods and be able to export?
There has been a lot of geopolitical uncertainties in terms of the effect of this to the businesses and particularly to the manufacturing sector. How big has it been, or how bad has it been?
Yes, I think if we go even before we cast our net to the geopolitics, of course, the Russian-Ukraine conflict, and even before that, the COVID. These have been events which have been once-in-a-century events. Of course, the Russian-Ukraine conflict is something which is having a major impact globally, both fuel prices, food prices. What does that mean for us? It increases our cost of business. We are net importer of fuel. We are also a net importer of our basic staples like wheat, our sunflower seeds for edible oils. So it is also important, and there's a realization as a country that we need to also see how we can produce more of our own food stuff. And that, again, is something which is more and more being now discussed at a government level, at a private sector level, that we need to reduce our dependency on just imports of our basic staples. And towards that, I think as Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we are also playing a very critical role. One of our key pillars, which is agriculture for industry, is driving that agenda by asking the questions that this is what is demanded by the country, by our processors who use these raw materials to convert them into finished goods like flours, like rice, the grains which are being consumed. How do we now link backwards with our farmers? How do we make them more efficient? How do we ensure that they are able to kind of produce these foods, more of it? We can have more land under cultivation, grow more of this food, and leave more money in their pocket, and at the same time be able to produce these foodstuffs, and also to the consumer, which is very important, that it is affordable to the consumer, because one of the biggest cry right now is the cost of living.
All right, and in line with the cost of living, the other thing that of course has been at the head of most executives is the issue of fluctuations, and particularly currency fluctuations. So in terms of the effect of that and the cost of doing business, how has that affected the operating environment?
Yes, I think as a net importer of many of our raw materials, foreign currency exchange rate does have a very negative impact if they are going in the wrong direction. Of course, for exporters, it's always good to have a weaker currency because then they can get back more of the local shilling. But when it comes to importers, it's a cost increase for them because for the raw materials. So from an importer's point of view, it has been a negative implication to their cost. The fluctuations, of course, have not been desirable, but more importantly is the availability of the foreign currency over the last year or more that has also kind of created that kind of a stress situation for manufacturers. It is improving, but it is not yet, we are not at an ideal state. And of course, at the end of the day, we have to look at our balance of payments. If we are importing more than what we are exporting, naturally, our demand for foreign currency is going to be higher than what is our inflows. And that's the key thing that we need to address. We need to be exporting more, and we need to be exporting more of value-add products. So that's one of our other third pillars, export-led growth. How can we convert many of our primary produce and value add them in the country here and then export so that we get more foreign currency into the country? And I think that's a very critical and very urgent question that we need to address now as well.
From a fiscal policy standpoint, what do you feel as manufacturers need to happen immediately to be able to make sure that we stabilize the currency and reduce the exchange rate costs?
So I think some of the maybe areas we can look at as some of direct intervention is to see how, first of all, we can support and have more predictability of availability of dollars. Yes, we can create a freer market and have dollars more available, but we also need to also incentivize the people who have the dollars to convert them into and have them available in the market. We are, as manufacturers, trying to seek for some solutions where there could be a priority given to manufacturers to have those currency available to them, first of all, before we even talk about the price, which is the rate. Availability is very important. If there is a level of prioritization given to that, then that in itself will bring the cost down significantly because it will bring predictability. It will mean that the manufacturer doesn't need to go and shop into multiple banks to try and go and look for that dollars. And that reduces the perceived demand. And by reducing the perceived demand, naturally the exchange rate will definitely stabilize as well.
We have seen, and particularly from the government side, is the issue of bilateral agreements. As manufacturers, are you feeling the effect of that, or do you have access to these markets that we are always signing bilateral agreements with?
I think it's a very good question. I think it's important that we do sign bilateral agreements, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that how are we benefiting out of those bilateral agreements? Are we able to export more of our produce into those markets? That is really the key question. And this is where I think the collaboration between the government, who are out there on the negotiating table, and the private sector, who should be also sitting on that table, should ensure that whenever we go out and discuss bilateral agreements, there's a very clear agenda that we are also meeting our export-led growth agenda, and ensuring that we are able to kind of have easy access to those markets, or are we getting certain raw materials from those countries more cost effectively to produce and to convert in our country for our domestic markets, or also further on for export markets. So we need to be very focused and targeted, and whenever we go out into any country it's not only from a manufacturing point of view, but from other trade perspectives as well. What are we also gaining? We need to have a cost-benefit analysis, which is always going on. And this is what many other countries do. Private sector, it's always private sector-led, and that's where we can create a win-win situation.
How difficult or how easy has it been for manufacturers to access capital?
Of course, manufacturing is a highly capital-intensive industry, and yes, manufacturers always require finance and access to capital. Right now, we are in a very tight situation with the rate of interest rates going up. It is an inevitable kind of situation where interest rates have to go up to contain our foreign currency getting weaker. But of course, if at the kind of rates that we are now seeing, it becomes unsustainable to actually for manufacturers to be able to borrow, even if that credit was available to borrow, and to ensure that it can be able to run profitable businesses. But we hope that this kind of high interest rate environment doesn't remain for long. Of course, there's a global aspect to it. When the dollar rate is high and our economy is tied to the dollar, then there's always going to be that differential between our local interest rate and the dollar rate. We hope, I think we are probably seeing that the global rates are now capping out, and hopefully we should soon see them turning downwards. But also for our own local debt situation, we need to also ensure how we can manage our national debt situation. And if we can manage that, then we don't get crowded out from that market, and more credit is available to the private sector.
All right, looking to the last part of the second half of the year, particularly, are you bullish, are you bearish?
I would like to say I am bullish, but subject to certain things being met. We have speed bumps ahead of us, and we need to kind of work at those speed bumps. And if we do work at those speed bumps, then I believe that the future holds being optimistic for all manufacturers. All
right, Rajan, thank you so much for making time for us. And of course, now there you have it. We need to work on those speed bumps going forward. But for now, back to you in the panel.
Thank you very much, Jimmy Mbogo, for that insightful engagement with CAM Chair Rajan Shah on global competitiveness, which is one of the pillars when it comes to CAM's focus of making sure that manufacturing bounces back. We have matters to do with export-led growth, SME development, of which Dr. there is quite concerned on, and the issue of also agriculture and input also cost. We'll be talking later on matters energy, and we'll have our reporter Jasmine Murani giving us details in regards to matters energy and manufacturing. But at this particular moment, we remain with this question: is it time that Kenyans go towards shamelessly copying, or it is time to work on this environment and make sure that our manufacturing is growing even further? At this particular moment, Transform Kenya Forum takes a short break. We break for news. We'll come back later, stronger, better, and more manufactured.